Christmas in Denver always looked like a postcard. The snow outside, the lights inside, my mother's roast turkey on the table. Everything perfect. Everything warm. My mother had this tradition. Every Christmas Eve she'd light the same set of candles my grandmother had used. White wax, gold holders, the kind that smelled faintly of vanilla and decades of family dinners. She'd dim the lights and for a moment the whole room would glow soft and golden. It was supposed to feel sacred. But that night, sitting at that table, I felt something else. A weight I couldn't name. Uncle Richard, my father's older brother, was visiting from Boulder. He didn't come often. Work kept him busy. But he'd made the drive through the snow, and my mother had insisted he sit at the head of the table in my father's old chair. He was halfway through his second glass of wine when he looked up at me and asked, casually, "Sarah, did you ever get the keys to the cabin?" I blinked. What cabin? The room went silent. Not the peaceful kind. The kind where everyone suddenly remembers they left the stove on. My mother's fork stopped midair. My father's old chair creaked as Uncle Richard shifted, confused. My sister Claire reached for her phone, suddenly very interested in something on the screen. And I just sat there feeling the air change. Uncle Richard frowned. "The cabin in Estes Park," he said slowly, like maybe I'd forgotten. "The one your father left you in the will." I felt my heartbeat in my throat. I don't know what you're talking about." Uncle Richard looked around the table. "Margaret," he said, turning to my mother. "You did give her the keys, right? It's been over a year now." My mother set down her fork very carefully. "Richard, this isn't the time," she said, her voice tight. "The time for what?" he asked. "James left that place to Sarah. He told me himself. 10 years ago he made sure it was in writing." "Richard." My mother's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Not now." The candles flickered. And I realized with a cold, sinking certainty. They all knew. Everyone at that table knew about something I didn't. And no one had ever planned to tell me. Detail sensorial additional. I remember the smell of rosemary from the turkey. The soft hum of the heater. The way my mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass. And I remember thinking, how long have they been hiding this? Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to know something. If you've ever sat at a family table and realized everyone knew a truth except you, if you've ever felt like the invisible one, the one whose name gets skipped, whose gifts get forgotten, this story might feel familiar. And if it does, stay with me. Because what I uncovered that night changed everything. Hit subscribe if stories like this matter to you. Now let me take you back to where this really started. Long before that Christmas dinner. Back to the moment I learned my place in this family. Growing up, I learned early that in our family there was room for one star. And it wasn't me. Claire was 3 years younger, but she might as well have been the sun. Beautiful. Confident. Magnetic. People gravitated toward her. I was the one who studied quietly, who didn't ask for much, who made things easier. I remember being 7 years old, sitting on the stairs, listening to my parents argue about money. My mother's voice strained. "We can't afford both." My father, quieter. "Sarah's been asking for months." "Claire needs the dance lessons more," my mother said. "She has talent, James. Real talent. Sarah can wait." I never got those piano lessons. But Claire danced for 10 years. And I learned something that night on those stairs. My needs could wait. Hers couldn't. That became the pattern. When Claire wanted to go to private school, I stayed in public. When Claire needed help with college tuition, I took out loans and worked 2 jobs. When Claire's wedding cost twice the budget, I postponed mine for a year so my parents could recover financially. I told myself it was love. I told myself I was being mature. But the truth? I had learned somewhere deep and early that asking for attention in this family felt like stealing. So I stopped asking. I became the daughter who was easy. The one who didn't complain. The one who understood. And slowly over the years I became invisible. Detail visual additional. I have this photo from Claire's high school graduation. She's in the center, surrounded by family, holding flowers, radiant. I'm in the back corner. You'd miss me if you weren't looking. That photo is the story of my childhood. Always there. Never seen. Memento additional. A Primera Grande excluso. When I was 16, I won a regional award for a science project. My teacher called my house excited. "Sarah's project is going to the state finals," she told my mother. "We'd love for the family to attend the ceremony." I came home that afternoon hopeful. My mother was on the phone. When she hung up, I asked, "Did Mrs. Patterson call?" "Oh yes," my mother said, distracted, flipping through a calendar. "The science thing. That's wonderful, honey." She paused. "But that's the same weekend as Claire's dance recital. We can't miss that." I nodded. "Of course," I said. "I went to the state finals alone. I won second place. No one from my family was there." When I came home with the ribbon, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," and went back to sewing sequins onto Claire's costume. I kept that ribbon in a drawer for years. Eventually I threw it away. What's the point of keeping a medal no one cared about? Our house in Denver was beautiful. 3 stories, a fireplace, hardwood floors that creaked in winter. From the outside we looked like the kind of family people envied. Inside, there was a script. And I knew my lines by heart. Claire was the lead. I was backstage crew. When I graduated top of my class in high school, the celebration lasted one dinner. When Claire made the cheerleading squad sophomore year, we threw a party. When I got my first job offer, a real career position with benefits, my father shook my hand and said, "Proud of you, kid." When Claire got cast in a local theater production, my mother invited the entire extended family to watch. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't need the validation. But deep down, I was exhausted. Exhausted from celebrating someone else's life while mine went unnoticed. Sinachev expandida, o noivado. When I got engaged to Tom, I was 32. We'd been dating for 3 years. He proposed on a hiking trail near Golden. Simple, quiet, just us. I called my parents that night, excited. "Mom, I have news," I said. "Oh." She sounded distracted. "Tom proposed." Silence. Then, "That's nice, dear." "Hold on." I heard her call to my father. "James, Sarah's getting married." I heard my father's voice in the background. "Good for her." Then my mother came back on the line. "Well, congratulations, honey. We'll talk details later. I'm helping Claire with her resume right now." That was it. No excitement. No tears. No celebration. Just, "We'll talk later." 6 months after that, Claire got engaged. And my mother cried. Actually cried. He called everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. She started planning immediately. Venues, caterers, flowers, everything. When I asked if she wanted help, she said, "Oh, Sarah, you're so busy with work. I don't want to burden you." But she had time for Claire. Always time for Claire. A memoria mais dolorosa. O funeral du pai. When my father died 18 months ago, I was the one who organized everything. The service. The flowers. The reception. I wrote the eulogy. I contacted the relatives. I handled the financial paperwork. Claire was too emotional to help. My mother kept saying, "She's devastated." She was always so close to him. During the wake, someone, a distant cousin, came up to me and asked, "Are you holding up okay?" Before I could answer, my mother interrupted. "Claire's taking it so hard," she said, glancing toward my sister who was sitting in a corner, surrounded by comforting friends. She was Daddy's little girl. I just nodded. Because what was I supposed to say? That I was grieving too? That I had lost him just as much as she had? That maybe just once someone could ask me how I was doing? I didn't say any of that. I just smiled politely and excused myself. That night, alone in my car in the parking lot, I finally let myself cry. Not because my father was gone, but because even in death I was still invisible. De tal simbolico. I found a letter in my father's desk a week after the funeral. It was addressed to me. He'd never sent it. It said, "Sarah, I know you think I don't see you, but I do. You're stronger than you know. I'm proud of you. Dad." I kept that letter. But I also wondered, if he saw me, why didn't he ever say it out loud? After college, I moved to a small apartment in Capitol Hill, 20 minutes from my parents' house, but it felt like a different world. I worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. I had my own routines, my own space, my own life. And I had Tom. Tom didn't come from money. He wasn't flashy. He was a civil engineer, practical, thoughtful, steady. We met at a community event. He'd been volunteering. So had I. He didn't know my family. He didn't know Claire. He didn't know the script. He just knew me. And for the first time in my life, someone saw me first. Memento chave. A primera vez que Tom percibió. Early in our relationship, we went to a family dinner at my parents' house. It was casual, Sunday roast, nothing formal. But I watched Tom watch the dynamics. The way my mother asked Claire about every detail of her week. The way my father laughed loudly at Claire's stories. The way I was asked one polite question and then the conversation moved on. On the drive home, Tom was quiet. Finally, he said, "Do they always do that?" "Do what?" I asked. "Talk over you," he said. "Like you're not there." I felt my throat tighten. "I'm used to it," I said. He looked at me and his face was serious. "You shouldn't have to be." That sentence stayed with me. Because no one had ever said that to me before. No one had ever suggested that maybe I deserved to be heard. De tal simbolico expandido. On my 35th birthday, Tom gave me a leather journal. On the first page he'd written, "Your voice matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." I cried when I read it. Not because it was grand or expensive, but because someone had finally told me I was worth listening to. I still have that journal. I've filled 3 more since then. But that first one, that's the one I go back to when I need to remember who I became when I stopped trying to be invisible. A constructo de una vida real. Tom and I built a quiet life together. We weren't dramatic. We didn't have big parties or social media moments. But we had Sunday morning hikes in the Rockies. We had dinners where we actually talked. We had a small garden where I grew tomatoes every summer. Simple things. But they were mine. And for the first time I understood what it felt like to be seen. Not as the quiet daughter. Not as Claire's older sister. Not as the one who made things easier. Just as Sarah. That version of me, the one Tom knew, was someone I'd never been allowed to be at home. 3 weeks after my father's funeral, the lawyer called a family meeting to read the will. We gathered in his office downtown. One of those old buildings with dark wood paneling and leather chairs that creaked when you sat down. I assumed it would be straightforward. The house would go to my mother. Some savings would be split between Claire and me. Maybe a few personal items divided up. The lawyer, a kind man in his 60s named Mr. Brennan, adjusted his glasses and began reading. Most of it was what I expected. The house, to my mother. The car, to my mother. A small investment account, split evenly between Claire and me. And then Mr. Brennan turned the page. "And finally," he said, "to my daughter Sarah, I leave the cabin in Estes Park, along with the surrounding 2 acres, to be transferred into her name immediately upon my death." I froze. "A cabin?" I looked up confused. "I'm sorry," I said. "What cabin?" Mr. Brennan looked surprised. "The property in Estes Park," he said. "Your father purchased it in 1992. It's been in the family for over 30 years. I stared at him. I didn't know my father owned property in Estes Park. Mr. Brennan frowned slightly, glancing at my mother. "Mrs. Lawson, did Sarah not know about the cabin?" My mother shifted in her seat. "It's an old place," she said dismissively. "We haven't used it in years." "But it was explicitly bequeathed to Sarah," Mr. Brennan said, looking back at his papers. "Your husband made this bequest 10 years ago and reconfirmed it in writing just last year." He slid a document across the table. I picked it up. There, in my father's handwriting, was a note attached to the will. "I want Sarah to have the cabin. It was always meant for her." Jail. I felt something crack open inside me. My father had left me something. Something that was mine. Not shared. Not split. I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Claire looked uncomfortable, staring at her hands. "Well," my mother said, standing abruptly. "We'll need to discuss the details later. This isn't the time." Mr. Brennan looked confused. "Mrs. Lawson, the transfer is quite simple. I just need Sarah's signature and..." "Later," my mother said firmly. "We'll handle it later." And just like that, the meeting ended. We walked out of that office and no one said a word about the cabin. Not in the parking lot. Not at the reception after. Not in the weeks that followed. It was like it had never been mentioned. A tentativa de preguntar. A few days later I called my mother. "Mom, about the cabin." "Oh, Sarah," she sighed. "That old place is falling apart. It's not worth the hassle. The roof leaks, the plumbing's a disaster. Honestly, it's more trouble than it's worth." "But Dad left it to me," I said. I know, honey, but he didn't realize how much work it would need. I'll handle the paperwork. We'll probably just sell it and split the money. Don't worry about it. I didn't push. I should have. But I didn't. Because that's what I always did. I backed down. I made things easier. I didn't ask questions. And my mother knew that. She was counting on it. Detaucht devastator expanded out. Looking back now, I realize something. She didn't say the cabin didn't exist. She didn't say my father had changed his mind. She just made sure I stopped thinking about it. And it worked. For 18 months I didn't ask about it again. I told myself it wasn't important. I told myself it was just an old cabin. I told myself my father probably hadn't meant much by it. I convinced myself it didn't matter. But deep down, I think I knew that if I pushed I'd uncover something I wasn't ready to face. So I let it go. Until Uncle Richard asked that question. And everything unraveled. The morning after that Christmas dinner, after Uncle Richard's question shattered the illusion, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table staring at nothing, replaying every word. Tom came downstairs around 6 a.m. and found me still sitting there. "You okay?" he asked. I looked up at him. "I need to find out what happened to that cabin." He nodded. "Then let's find out." We started with public records. Property ownership in Larimer County. Estes Park. My father's name. Tom pulled up the county assessor's website. And there was. Lawson Family Cabin, 12 Pinewood Drive, Estes Park, Colorado. Purchased, June 1992. Land, 2.1 acres. Assessed value $340,000. My heart was pounding. "Scroll down," I said. Tom scrolled. And then I saw it. Current owner, Claire Lawson. Not Sarah Lawson. Claire, my sister. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. "That can't be right," I whispered. Tom's jaw tightened. "When was it transferred?" he asked. I leaned closer. Transfer date, March 14th. 6 weeks after my father's funeral. Signed by Margaret Lawson, executor of estate. Notarized. Final. I felt the room tilt. "Pull up the will," Tom said quietly. I grabbed my laptop and opened the PDF Mr. Brennan had sent me after the reading. Page 7, Section 4. To my daughter Sarah Elizabeth Lawson, I leave the cabin located at 12 Pinewood Drive, Estes Park, Colorado, along with all surrounding property and structures, to be transferred into her name immediately upon my death. It was right there. In writing. Signed. Witnessed. But somehow the deed had been transferred to Claire anyway. A descoberta do documento alter do. Tom kept digging. He found the notary records filed with the county. There was a second document. An amendment. Filed by my mother, 6 weeks after my father's death. It claimed there had been a clerical error in the original will. It stated that my father had verbally expressed his wish for Claire to inherit the property instead. Verbal. No recording. No witnesses. No written addendum. Just my mother's word. And a notary's signature. That was all it took. My inheritance, the one thing my father had left specifically to me, had been legally transferred to my sister. And I'd never known. O momento de verdade inegável. Tom printed everything. The original will. The property transfer. The amendment document. The notary records. He laid them out on the table side by side. "Sarah," he said carefully. "This wasn't a mistake." I stared at the papers. "Someone made sure you wouldn't get that cabin," he continued. "And the only person who had the legal authority to do that was my mother," I finished. We sat in silence. Finally, Tom asked, "What do you want to do?" I thought about it. For 57 years I had made myself small. I had swallowed every slight, every dismissal, every moment of being erased. But this wasn't just being overlooked. This was theft. Not just of property, but of my father's last gift to me. The only thing he had ever given me that was mine. I looked at Tom. "I'm going back," I said. "To your mother's house?" "To Christmas dinner," I said. "The one she's hosting tomorrow night." Tom's eyes widened. "And I'm bringing these documents," I continued, tapping the stack of papers. "Sarah." "I'm not yelling," I said. "I'm not making a scene. I'm just going to tell the truth." I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been buried for decades. For once, I said quietly, I'm going to stop making things easier. Detalhe technico additional, a assinatura falsificata. There was one more thing Tom found. A detail so small I almost missed it. The amendment document, the one claiming my father had verbally changed his mind, was dated March 10th. But the notary stamp was dated March 14th. 4 days later. Tom looked at me. Why would she wait 4 days to file it? He asked. I knew why. She was making sure I didn't ask questions. She filed it right before the deadline, the exact moment when it would be too late to contest easily. She had planned this. Every step. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the documents spread out in front of me. The will. The transfer. The amendment. My father's handwritten note. It was always meant for her. I stared at his signature until the letters blurred. Tom sat across from me, patient, waiting. Finally, he asked, "What are you thinking?" I didn't answer right away. I was thinking about every moment I'd been erased. Every celebration that belonged to someone else. Every achievement that went unnoticed. Every time I convinced myself it didn't matter. But this mattered. Because my father, quiet, distant, imperfect as he was, had tried to see me. He had left me something. And my mother had taken it. Not because Claire needed it more. Not because it was practical. But because that's what she'd always done. She'd given Claire everything. And expected me to accept it. I looked up at Tom. I'm going tomorrow, I said. To the dinner? Yes. What are you going to do? I straightened the stack of papers. I'm going to tell the truth, I said. Calmly. Hurry. With evidence. And if they deny it? They won't be able to, I said. Because this time I have proof. Tom reached across the table and took my hand. I'm proud of you, he said. I felt tears sting my eyes. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said. I know. I'm doing it because I deserve to be seen, I said. And I'm done pretending I don't. A preparcio emotional. The next morning I woke up early. I got dressed carefully, not formal, not casual. Just present. I put the documents in a leather folder. Tom asked if I wanted him to come with me. I thought about it. No, I said. This is something I need to do alone. He kissed my forehead. Call me if you need me, he said. I nodded. Before I left, I stood in front of the mirror. I looked at myself, 57 years old, gray starting to thread through my hair, lines around my eyes. I looked tired. But I also looked clear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking into that house trying to make myself smaller. I was walking in as myself. And that was enough. Christmas Day. A familia reunida novamente. Presenza Bertos. Todos confortaves. E eluseo de normalidade. Nareo. When I arrived at my mother's house, the snow had started again. The same candles were lit. The same warm lights glowed. The same Christmas music played softly in the background. My mother opened the door, smiling. Sarah. I was worried you wouldn't come after the awkwardness last night. I wouldn't miss it, I said. I stepped inside. Uncle Richard was there again. So was Aunt Linda. Claire and her husband, Mark. A few cousins. Everyone smiled. Everyone was polite. And for a while everything was normal. We ate. We talked about the snow, about work, about nothing important. And then, as dessert was being served, Claire looked at me and said casually, "So, Mom and I were thinking about renovating the cabin this spring. Maybe turn it into an Airbnb. What do you think, Sarah?" She smiled. Like it was nothing. Like it was hers. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at me. I set down my fork. "The cabin in Estes Park?" I asked. "Yeah," Claire said. "Such a cute spot. Shame to let it just sit there unused." I nodded slowly. "That's interesting," I said. "Because according to Dad's will, that cabin was left to me." Claire blinked. "What?" I reached down and pulled the folder from my bag. I set it on the table. "This," I said, opening it, "is a copy of Dad's will." I slid the first document across the table. Page 7. Dad left me the cabin. 2 acres. Estes Park. My mother's face went pale. "Sarah, this isn't the time." "But 6 weeks after he died," I continued, placing the second document on the table, "the deed was transferred to Claire." Claire looked at our mother confused. Mom. I pulled out the third document. This amendment, I said, was filed by you, Mom. You claimed there was a clerical error in the will. You said Dad had verbally told you he wanted Claire to have it instead. The room was silent. My mother's hands were shaking. There was a misunderstanding, she started. No, I said calmly. There wasn't. I placed the final document on the table. This is Dad's original instruction to the lawyer, written 10 years ago and reconfirmed in writing 1 year before he died. I looked at my mother. He wanted me to have it. And you made sure I never did. Akeda das defaces, expand Ida. Claire stared at the documents. I didn't know, she said, her voice shaking. Mom, you said. You never asked, I said not unkindly. Claire's face crumpled. My mother stood up. Sarah, you're making this into something it's not. Then explain it to me, I said. Explain why you filed an amendment claiming Dad changed his mind when there's no evidence of that. Explain why you never told me. Explain why you let me sit at this table for 18 months, believing I hadn't been left anything when you knew the truth. Silence. You didn't think I'd find out, did you? I asked. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Claire needed it more, she said, her voice breaking. She struggled, Sarah. You've always been fine. You've always been self-sufficient. Self-sufficient, I repeated. Is that what you call it? I felt something break open inside me. I wasn't self-sufficient, Mom. I was invisible. The room was completely still. Do you know why I didn't ask about the cabin after the will reading? I continued. Because you told me it wasn't important. And I believed you. Because that's what I've done my entire life. I've believed you when you told me Claire needed more. I've believed you when you told me I was fine. I've made myself smaller so she could shine. My voice cracked, but I kept going. And when Dad, for once, tried to give me something that was just mine, you took that too. My mother was crying now. I was trying to help, she whispered. Help who? I asked. Claire? Or yourself? She didn't answer. I looked at Claire. She was staring at the table, tears streaming down her face. Did you know? I asked her gently. She shook her head. I swear, Sarah, I didn't know. Mom just said, she said it was complicated and that Dad had wanted me to have it because I needed help getting started. She looked at our mother. You lied to me, Claire whispered. My mother covered her face with her hands. Uncle Richard, who had been silent this whole time, spoke up. Margaret, he said quietly. James told me about this cabin. He told me specifically that he was leaving it to Sarah. He said it was important to him that she have something of her own. My mother looked up, her face wet with tears. I thought I was doing the right thing, she said. Claire's had such a hard time and Sarah's always been okay. I thought. You thought it didn't matter, I finished. She didn't deny it. I stood up. The room held its breath. I'm not here for an apology, I said. I'm here to tell you something. I looked at my mother. I'm filing a legal challenge. The cabin is going back into my name. Sarah, please, my mother started. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I said. I'm doing this because Dad wanted me to have it. And for once in my life I'm going to honor what he wanted, even if you didn't. A phrase mortal kill phrase. Expand Ida. I picked up my folder. I looked around the table, at my mother, at Claire, at the family who had watched me disappear for 57 years. And I said, this isn't about the cabin, Mom. It's about the fact that you've spent my entire life convincing me I didn't deserve to take up space. And I believed you. For 57 years I believed you. But I'm done now. I'm done being the daughter who doesn't ask for too much. I'm done making myself small so everyone else can be comfortable. And I'm done pretending it didn't hurt. The room was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. And for the first time in my life I didn't wait for permission to leave. I just walked out. I walked to the door. Behind me I heard Claire's voice, small and broken. Sarah, wait. I stopped. I didn't turn around. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believed her. Claire had been given everything, but she'd never asked for it to be taken from me. I know, I said quietly. Please don't go, she said. I turned to look at her. Her face was red, her eyes swollen. I'm not angry at you, Claire, I said. Then stay, she said. We can fix this. I shook my head. This isn't something you fix in one conversation, I said. This is 57 years of being told I don't matter as much as you do. And I can't keep pretending that's okay. I looked at my mother, still sitting at the table, her hands covering her face. I love you, Mom, I said. But I can't keep sacrificing myself so you can feel like you're helping Claire. I opened the door. The cold air hit my face, sharp and clean. Uncle Richard stood up. Sarah, he said. Your father would be proud of you. I felt tears sting my eyes. Thank you, I said. And I walked out. The snow was falling heavier now. I got into my car, closed the door, and sat in the silence for a moment. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. I called Tom. How did it go? He asked. I did it, I said. You okay? Yeah, I said. And I meant it. For once, I wasn't walking away because I was hurt. I was walking away because I deserved better. Detail visual. I drove through the snow-covered streets of Denver. Past the decorated houses. Past the families gathered in warm living rooms. Past the life I used to think I was supposed to want. And I drove home. Home. To our small, quiet house. To the life I had built that was actually mine. 3 months later, the legal case was settled. The cabin was returned to me. Claire didn't fight it. In fact, she called me 2 weeks after Christmas. I'm not contesting it, she said. It's yours. It always should have been. We didn't talk long. But it was something. My mother took longer. She didn't speak to me for weeks. And then one afternoon she called. I need you to understand, she said. I was trying to take care of Claire. I know, I said. But I see now, she continued, her voice thick, that I hurt you. I didn't respond right away. I don't need you to fix it, Mom, I said finally. I just need you to see it. I do, she whispered. I see it now. We didn't resolve everything that day. But we started. And that was enough. A primera visita a cabana. In early spring, Tom and I drove up to Estes Park. The road wound through the mountains, snow still clinging to the peaks. When we turned onto Pinewood Drive, my heart was pounding. And then I saw it. A small cabin tucked into the trees. Wood siding, a stone chimney, a porch that wrapped around the front. It wasn't falling apart. It was beautiful. We parked and walked up to the door. I used the key the lawyer had sent me. The original key, the one my mother had never given me. The door opened. Inside, the cabin smelled like pine and dust and time. There was a fireplace. A small kitchen. 2 bedrooms. Windows that looked out over the mountains. On the mantel I found a framed photo. It was me. Maybe 10 years old, standing in front of this very cabin, smiling. I didn't remember the photo being taken. But my father had kept it. All these years he'd kept it here. I picked up the frame, my hands trembling. Tom came up behind me, resting his hand on my shoulder. He saw you, Tom said quietly. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Yeah, I whispered. He did. Scene final. Later we sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the Rockies. The air was cool and clean. The only sound was the wind through the trees. Tom looked at me. How does it feel? He asked. I thought about it. About the 57 years of being invisible. About the confrontation. About the legal fight. About the fractures in my family that might never fully heal. And then I thought about this place. This cabin. This space that was mine. It feels like I finally have room to breathe, I said. Tom smiled. We sat in silence, side by side. And for the first time in my life, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like peace. Detail symbolico final. I keep that photo on the mantel now. The 10-year-old version of me, smiling in front of the cabin. She didn't know yet that she'd spend decades being erased. But she also didn't know that one day she'd find her way back. To this place. To herself. And that when she did, she wouldn't let anyone take it from her again. Gatilho emotional. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever been the quiet one, the one who stepped aside, the one whose voice got lost in the noise of someone else's needs, I see you. And I want you to know, your story matters. Drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching from? Have you ever had to fight to reclaim something that was always yours? Your experience deserves to be heard. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about people who finally stopped shrinking and started standing, hit that subscribe button. Because there are more truths to uncover. More voices that need to be heard. And I'll be here telling them. One story at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for seeing me, the way I'm learning to see myself.